I need you to understand something before I start. I didn't imagine it. I didn't exaggerate it. And I didn't go looking for it. Whatever happened that night, it followed me back. I know how that sounds. I know what you're already thinking. That I was alone too long. That the silence got to me. That the woods play tricks on your mind when you let them get too quiet. I thought the same thing, right up until the moment I saw it standing there, watching me like it had been waiting. And by then, it was already too late to leave. Too late to pretend I hadn't seen it. Too late to undo what I'd done by staying the night. I wasn't supposed to stay. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head, like if I could just rewind far enough, I could choose differently. I had packed light. Just a single night bag, some canned food, a flashlight, and the keys to the cabin I hadn't visited in almost 6 years. It belonged to my father before he passed, and even then, he barely used it. Said the place was too quiet. I used to laugh at that. Quiet sounded like peace to me back then. I needed peace, or at least I thought I did. The road up there hadn't changed much. Still narrow, still uneven, still cutting through dense forest like it didn't belong. The kind of road that makes you second-guess every mile, like maybe you missed a turn and you're just getting deeper into something you shouldn't. The trees were taller than I remembered, closer too. Branches stretching overhead like they were trying to close the sky. I got there just before sunset. The light was low, that dull orange that makes everything feel slower than it is. The cabin looked smaller, older, like it had been shrinking into itself while I was gone. The wood was darker, damp in places. The windows were clouded with dust and something else I couldn't quite name. But it was still standing. That was enough. Inside, the air hit me first, cold, stale, with that faint smell of old wood and something damp underneath. Not mold exactly, just something that didn't belong to a place that had been empty for years. I opened the windows, let the air move, told myself it was nothing. I remember talking out loud just to hear a voice. Mine. It sounded strange in there, like it didn't want to stay in the room, like the walls weren't holding sound the way they should. Just one night, I said. I even laughed a little, dry, forced. You've handled worse. That was the only joke I made the whole time. I unpacked slowly, took my time with everything, set the bag down, checked the locks, tested the lights. Half of them didn't work. Of course they didn't. The generator still ran, though. That steady hum filled the silence just enough to keep it from feeling absolute. But it didn't last. Because the quiet out there isn't like the quiet you're used to. It's not empty. It's full. Full of small sounds layered on top of each other. Wind brushing through leaves, branches creaking, something shifting in the distance. You don't notice it at first, not consciously, but your body does. Your body starts listening before your mind catches up. And then something changes. I didn't notice when it happened. That's the part that bothers me the most. There wasn't a clear moment, no sudden stop, no dramatic shift, just absence. 1 second there were sounds, the next there weren't. The generator kept humming. My breath was still there, but outside? Nothing. No wind, no leaves, no distant movement. Just this flat, unnatural stillness that pressed against the cabin like something heavy leaning on the walls. I told myself it was normal. Animals go quiet sometimes. Maybe a predator moved through. Maybe I just hadn't noticed the silence before. But I had. I know I had. I went to the window without thinking. That instinct you get when something feels wrong, but you don't know why. I didn't turn the light off first. That was my mistake. All I saw at first was my reflection. Pale, tired, eyes adjusting to the glass more than the darkness beyond it. Then I leaned closer, and for a second, just a second, I thought I saw something move behind me. I turned fast, too fast, the kind of movement that makes your muscles tighten before your brain has time to catch up. Nothing was there. Just the cabin, just the same dim light and the same stale air. I stood there longer than I should have, listening, waiting. Nothing changed. So I told myself it was nerves, just nerves. First night back, old place. Too many memories layered over too much silence. I forced myself to sit down, opened one of the cans, ate without tasting it, kept glancing at the windows like they were going to show me something if I looked long enough. They didn't. Not yet. It must have been an hour later when I heard it. A sound, soft, deliberate, not outside, inside. It came from the hallway. Just a single step, not a creak, not the house settling. A step, slow, measured, like something had weight and intention behind it. I froze, completely, the spoon still in my hand. My breath caught halfway in. I told myself it was the wood. Old floors shift. They expand. They contract. But this wasn't random. It came again. One more step. Closer. I stood up without realizing I was doing it. Every movement felt louder than it should have. My heartbeat was in my ears now, loud enough to drown everything else out. "Hello?" I said. That was a mistake, because the moment I spoke, the sound stopped. Not faded, not slowed, stopped. Like whatever made it had been waiting for me to acknowledge it. The silence that followed was worse than the noise, heavier, thicker, like the air itself had changed. I took a step toward the hallway, then another, each one slower than the last. The doorway was dark. No light from the main room reached far enough in. Just a narrow stretch of floor, disappearing into shadow. I stood there longer than I want to admit. Then I turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness in a straight line. Clean, sharp, empty. The hallway was empty. Doors closed, walls the same as I remembered. No movement, no sound, nothing. I exhaled, long, slow, like I'd been holding it for minutes. Old house, I muttered. That's all. I even believed it, for a moment, until I lowered the flashlight and saw the floor. There were marks, faint, easy to miss if you weren't looking directly at them. Not footprints, not exactly, more like impressions. Long, too long, and spaced too far apart to be anything human. They started halfway down the hallway, and they led toward the room I was standing in. But they didn't go all the way. They stopped just before the light, like whatever made them didn't want to step into it. That's when I should have left. That's when I should have grabbed my keys, walked out, and never looked back. But I didn't, because I kept thinking the same thing over and over again. There has to be an explanation. There always is, right? So I stayed. I wish I hadn't, because that was the moment it stopped just being a place and started becoming something else entirely, something that wasn't empty, something that knew I was there and was getting closer. I didn't sleep. I told myself I would. I even went through the motions, checked the locks again, turned off the main light, kept the flashlight within reach like that would make a difference. I lay down on the old bed, still half-dressed, boots on, just in case I needed to move fast. That thought should have been enough to send me back to the car right then. It wasn't. The mattress dipped in places I didn't remember, springs shifting under my weight like they were adjusting to something new, or something returning. I kept my eyes on the ceiling at first, tracking the faint cracks in the wood, listening to the generator's hum steady my breathing. It almost worked. Almost. But the quiet came back. Not all at once. It never did. It crept in, like something testing the edges of the space, pushing into it slowly until you couldn't remember what it sounded like before. The hum of the generator started to feel distant, like it wasn't part of the room anymore. Just background. Just something far away. Then even that felt wrong. I don't know how long I lay there before I realized something else had changed. The air. It felt colder. Not the kind of cold that seeps in from outside. This was different. Still, heavy. Like the temperature had dropped only in certain parts of the room. My arms picked it up first, then my face. Uneven, patchy, like something was blocking the warmth. I sat up slowly. Every movement felt deliberate, controlled. Like if I moved too fast, I'd draw attention to myself. That thought didn't feel like mine. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no shifting, no sound from the hallway. But the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied. That's the only way I can explain it. I reached for the flashlight and didn't turn it on right away. Just held it. Waited. My thumb resting on the switch like it mattered when I decided to see. Then I heard it again. Not from the hallway this time. Closer. A soft, uneven exhale. Behind me. I didn't move, not at first. My body locked up in a way I can't really describe. Not panic, not yet. Something more primitive. Like every part of me understood something my mind was still trying to deny. I became aware of my own breathing. Too loud, too fast. I tried to slow it, but that only made it worse. Because it didn't match. There were two rhythms, mine and something else, slower, deeper, right behind me. I turned the flashlight on, too fast. The beam shook as it cut across the room, jittering over the walls, the floor, the corner near the door. Nothing. There was nothing there. The space behind me was empty. I checked again, slower this time, controlled. Sweeping the light carefully, forcing myself to focus on details, edges, corners, shadows. Still nothing. But the cold didn't go away. It stayed, lingering, concentrated near the side of the bed where I had just felt it, like something had been there, and moved. I stood up. I don't remember deciding to. My body just did it, like it knew staying still wasn't safe anymore. Enough, I whispered, not to anything specific, just out loud, to break whatever hold that silence had. I walked out of the room and back into the main area, faster than before, less careful. I didn't want to be in that room anymore. Didn't want my back exposed like that again. The cabin felt smaller now. That's not an exaggeration. The space between walls felt tighter, the ceiling lower. Like everything had shifted, just slightly inward. Or maybe I had. I grabbed my jacket, my keys. I even made it to the door. My hand was on the handle. I remember that clearly. Cold metal, solid, real. And for a second, just a second, I almost opened it. But something stopped me. Not physically. It was a thought. Sharp, immediate, out of place. If you go outside, it'll be closer. I froze. I don't know where that thought came from. It didn't feel like fear. It felt certain, like a fact I hadn't realized until that exact moment. I pulled my hand back slowly, and that's when I heard it again. This time, from outside, a sound against the wall. Not scratching, not quite. More like something brushing along the wood. Slow, deliberate, following the length of the cabin. I didn't breathe. It moved past the door. I could hear it, feel it almost. The faint vibration through the floorboards. Like whatever it was had weight, real weight. It reached the window and stopped. I didn't want to look. Every instinct I had told me not to. But I did anyway. Slowly, carefully. I stepped closer to the window, keeping just enough distance to stay out of the direct reflection. The glass was dark now, no light inside except the faint glow from the generator-powered bulb behind me. I angled myself, just enough to see outside without seeing too much of myself. At first, there was nothing, just trees, shadows layered over shadows. Then something shifted. Not movement exactly, more like a shape separating itself from the dark around it. Tall, too tall. It stood just beyond the reach of the cabin's weak light, where the trees started to close in again. At first, it didn't look real. My eyes kept trying to adjust it into something familiar. A trick of branches, a misread shadow. But then it moved. A small motion. Its head, tilting. Not like an animal, not curious. Observing. The outline sharpened just enough for me to understand what I was looking at. Long limbs, narrow torso. Shoulders that sat too high, too forward. And the head, God. The head wasn't right. It was elongated, not fully wolf, not fully anything I could name. The muzzle too long, the ears too still, and the eyes. I didn't see them clearly, but I knew they were on me, focused, unblinking, like they had been there longer than I had, watching, waiting. I stepped back without realizing it. My heel caught the floor unevenly, and I stumbled, the noise louder than it should have been. The thing didn't react immediately. It just stayed. Then, slowly, it leaned forward, not stepping, not walking, just shifting its weight closer. Like it didn't need to rush, like it already knew where I was going. That's when I understood something I wish I hadn't. It hadn't just found the cabin. It, knew the walls, knew the distance, knew me. And the way it tilted its head again, slightly, almost thoughtfully. It felt like recognition. Like it wasn't the first time it had seen someone stand exactly where I was standing, or the first time it had waited until morning to get closer. I don't remember deciding to turn away from the window. 1 second I was looking at it, trying not to, failing. And the next I was facing the center of the cabin, breathing like I'd just run something off my chest, instead of standing still. It hadn't rushed me. That's what stayed with me. Anything else would have. A normal animal, even a large one, would have reacted to the noise I made. It would have moved, flinched, circled, something. But that thing didn't. It adjusted, it observed, it waited, like it understood something I didn't. I kept my back to the window after that. I didn't want to see if it was still there. I didn't want confirmation, not yet. There's a strange kind of safety in not knowing for certain. It lets you pretend you still have options. I moved slowly toward the table, forcing my hands to do something, anything, just to keep from locking up completely. I picked up the can I hadn't finished, then set it down again. My fingers felt numb, not cold, just disconnected. Think. That's what I kept telling myself. Think. You're not trapped. It's outside. You're inside. There are walls, a door, distance. But every time I tried to settle on that, something pushed back against it. That same quiet certainty from before. It doesn't matter. I hated that thought. I rejected it immediately. But it didn't leave. It just lingered. I glanced toward the window despite myself. Just for a second. It was still there. Closer. I didn't see it move, but it was closer. The edge of the light caught more of it now, enough to make out the length of its arms, hanging lower than they should, enough to see the way its posture leaned forward, like it was always mid-step, without ever completing one. My chest tightened. It hadn't rushed, because it didn't need to. That realization hit differently. Slow, heavy, like something settling into place that had always been there. I forced myself to look away again, harder this time, like I could physically pull my focus off it. I grabbed the flashlight, turned it off, then on again. Pointless movements, but they gave me something to control. I needed a plan. Staying inside didn't feel safe anymore. Not really. The walls felt thinner. The space felt compromised. But going outside? No. That thought came back stronger. If you go outside, it'll be closer. I swallowed hard. "What do you want?" I said, louder this time. The words felt small the second they left my mouth. They didn't belong in that space. They didn't carry weight. There was no answer. Of course there wasn't. But something changed. A shift. Subtle. The kind of movement you feel more than see. I turned my head just enough to catch the window again. It was gone. Not stepped back, not moved into shadow. Gone. My stomach dropped in a way that made me feel hollow, because I hadn't seen it leave, and that meant it could move without me noticing. That meant a sound hit the side of the cabin. Sharp, close, not brushing this time. Impact. I flinched hard enough to stumble backward, knocking into the table. The can hit the floor with a dull metallic clatter that echoed too long in the silence. Then came another sound, on the roof, heavy, a shift in weight that pressed down through the beams above me. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin streams. My head snapped upward, flashlight beam shaking as it hit the wood above. "Stop," I said. I don't know why. It wasn't a command. It wasn't even a plea. Just a word that came out because I needed something to fill the space. The weight moved, slow, deliberate, crossing from one side of the roof to the other. Each step measured, each one controlled. Not testing, not searching, navigating, like it knew exactly where everything was. My breathing got worse, faster, shallow. I couldn't slow it down anymore. Then it stopped, right above me. The silence that followed was worse than before, because now I knew where it was. Directly overhead, close enough that the only thing separating us was wood that suddenly didn't feel thick at all. I backed away slowly, one step at a time, keeping the light trained on the ceiling like I expected it to break through at any second. It didn't. Instead, a sound, not movement, not impact, a voice, low, rough, wrong. It didn't come from above. It came from the hallway, inside. "Hello?" My blood went cold. It was my voice. Not similar, not close. Exact. Same tone, same inflection, even the slight hesitation at the end. For a second I actually thought, I had said it without realizing. But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't, because my mouth was still closed, and the echo of it lingered in the air in a way that didn't match the space. I turned slowly toward the hallway. The darkness there felt thicker now, not just absence of light, presence, like something had filled it. "Hello?" it said again, closer this time. Still my voice, still wrong. Every instinct I had screamed not to respond, so I didn't. I stood there, frozen, the beam of the flashlight fixed on the edge of the hallway, where the light died and the darkness took over. Nothing came out. No movement, no shape. Just that feeling, watching, waiting, listening. The seconds stretched longer than they should have. Time didn't feel steady anymore. It felt dragged. Then, a shift in the light. Not from my flashlight, from the hallway. A subtle change in shadow, like something had moved just out of sight. And then it stepped forward, not fully, just enough. A shape at the edge of the beam, tall, too tall for the space, the outline wrong in all the same ways as before. But this time, it was inside. It had gotten in, and I hadn't heard the door open. I didn't run. I should have. Everything in me was screaming to move, to get out, to put distance between me and that shape in the hallway. But my body didn't listen. It held me there, locked in place, like running would only make it worse, like movement would confirm something I wasn't ready to accept. The flashlight trembled in my hand, the beam barely steady as it cut across the edge of that thing, standing just beyond full view. It didn't step closer, not yet. It just stayed there, half in shadow, like it understood exactly how much I could handle before I broke. I could hear it breathing, not like before, not from behind me, not from outside. This was clearer, wet, slow, controlled, human enough to be wrong, animal enough to be worse. "Don't," I whispered. I don't know why I said that. Maybe I thought if I gave it something, some kind of boundary, it might stop. Maybe I still believed it followed rules. It tilted its head. I saw that clearly this time. The light caught part of its face, not fully, never fully, but enough. The length of the muzzle, the way the skin, or fur, I still don't know, pulled tight in places it shouldn't. The shape of the jaw, slightly open, like it was tasting the air. And the eyes, I see them now when I close mine. They reflected the light just enough to show they were locked on me. Not curious, not confused, certain, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. "You shouldn't be here," I said, and this time my voice broke halfway through. It didn't answer, but it moved. One step, into the light. The sound of its foot hitting the floor was soft, but it carried weight, real weight. The boards dipped under it slightly, a quiet groan pushing up through the silence. Its proportions were worse up close, longer than they should be, arms hanging too low, fingers or claws extending just a little too far. Its shoulders rolled forward unnaturally, like it wasn't built to stand upright, but chose to anyway, and it kept watching me, always watching. I took a step back, then another. The space behind me was running out. I could feel the wall without turning to check. "You don't have to do this," I said, and I hated how small that sounded, how useless. It took another step closer, matching me. Not faster, never faster, like it was letting me feel the distance disappear. I realized something then that made everything worse. It wasn't chasing me. It was guiding me. Every step I took back wasn't escape. It was positioning. My heel hit the wall. There it was, the end, nowhere else to go. The flashlight beam shook harder, catching more of it now. Its chest, the rise and fall of breath that didn't match any rhythm I understood. The texture of its body, uneven, like parts of it didn't belong together. And the smell. I hadn't noticed it before. Now it hit all at once. Rot, damp earth, something metallic underneath. It filled the air so fast it felt like it had always been there, just waiting for me to be close enough to notice. I gagged. It leaned in slightly. Not aggressive, not hesitant, intentional. "Hello," it said again. My voice, right in front of me. I felt something in my chest give at that point. Not physically, something else, like a line I didn't know I had just snapped. "Stop using my voice," I said, louder now, panic breaking through. It paused, head tilting again. Then it opened its mouth wider, too wide. The jaw stretched beyond what should be possible, the shape distorting, pulling at the edges like it was forcing itself into something familiar. And when it spoke again, I stayed. The words hit harder than anything else. Because I had said that, earlier, to myself. Quiet, unimportant. Something I hadn't even realized I said out loud. I stayed. It repeated it slower, like it was learning it, like it was trying it on. I shook my head. No, no, that's not. I stayed. Closer now. The words were clearer, more stable, less broken. And that's when I understood what it was doing. It wasn't just copying. It was building, piece by piece, from me. I slid sideways along the wall, desperate now, trying to break whatever pattern it had set. It didn't rush to stop me. It turned slowly instead, keeping me in front of it, adjusting its position like it had all the time in the world. Why? I asked. I didn't expect an answer. I didn't want one. But I got something anyway. Not words. Not at first. It took one more step. Close enough that the beam of the flashlight only showed parts of it at a time. The rest disappeared into shadow, even though it was right there. Then it lowered its head, closer to mine. I could feel its breath now, cold, wrong, and finally, a sound. Not my voice this time, not human. A low, strained noise, like something deep inside it was trying to form meaning and failing. But beneath that, a pattern, a rhythm, like it was pushing something forward. And then, you stayed. Different, not mimicry. Understanding. I don't know why that terrified me more than everything else combined. Because it meant it wasn't just repeating, it knew. My hand tightened around the flashlight. And in that moment, just one, I made a choice. A bad one, a desperate one. I swung the flashlight at its head, hard. The impact was solid, real. The beam shattered instantly, plunging the room into darkness so complete, it felt like something physical closing over my eyes. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing. No light, no shape, no reference. Then, a sound. Not pain, not anger, something else. A sharp intake of breath, followed by movement, fast, faster than anything it had done before. I turned and ran. This time my body listened. I didn't care where I was going. I didn't care about the plan, the door, the window, anything. Just distance, just away. My hands hit the door before I even fully registered it. I fumbled with the handle, fingers slipping, heart pounding so hard it blurred everything else out. It was behind me. I could feel it, closer than before, closer than it had ever needed to be. The door finally gave. Cold air hit my face as I stumbled outside, nearly falling down the steps. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I ran straight into the dark, into the trees, into anything that wasn't that cabin. Branches tore at my clothes. The ground dipped and shifted under my feet. I nearly went down twice, but kept moving, pushing forward on instinct alone. And then, I heard it. Not behind me, beside me, keeping pace, not crashing through the woods, not struggling, gliding, matching every step without effort. I risked a glance, just one. It was there, moving between the trees, its shape stretching and compressing with each step in ways that didn't make sense. Sometimes on two legs, sometimes lower, always faster than it should have been. And it wasn't trying to catch me. It already could have. It was staying with me, guiding me again. And ahead, through the trees, I saw it. The clearing. The place where the road should be. Relief hit too early. I ran harder, faster, desperate, and as I broke through the last line of trees, I realized something was wrong. The road wasn't there, just more forest, endless, unbroken. I stopped, just for a second, just long enough to understand. I hadn't been running away. I had been led somewhere else, and when I turned, it was standing right behind me. I didn't feel it grab me. That's the part that doesn't make sense, even now. 1 second it was there, close enough that I could see the outline of its face without needing light, close enough that the smell hit me all over again. And the next, something changed. Not outside, inside. Like the world didn't move, but I did. My legs gave out. Not like I tripped, not like I slipped. They just stopped listening. I hit the ground hard, the air leaving my lungs in a way that made everything go silent for a second. No sound, no breath, just pressure, and the taste of dirt, and something metallic at the back of my throat. I tried to push myself up. Nothing. My arms worked. Barely. My fingers dug into the soil, cold and damp, roots pressing against my palms. But my legs, gone. Like they weren't mine anymore. And behind me, it stepped closer. Slow again. Always slow when it wanted me to understand. I didn't turn right away. I couldn't. Part of me thought, if I don't look, maybe it isn't as close as it feels. Maybe there's still space. Maybe there's still time. But that illusion didn't last. Its shadow fell over me, blocking what little light filtered through the trees. I felt it before I saw it. The cold. That same uneven cold from the cabin, but stronger now, pressing into my back, settling into my skin like it was trying to sink deeper. Then the sound. Breathing. Right above me. I turned. I wish I hadn't. It was closer than anything should ever be. Close enough that the details didn't blur anymore. They got worse. The face wasn't just wrong, it was layered. Like parts of it shifted slightly when I tried to focus, never fully settling into one shape. The muzzle elongated, then pulled back just enough to resemble something almost human, before stretching again. The eyes reflected nothing now. No light. Just depth. Like looking into something that didn't end. Its mouth hung open slightly, and I could see inside. Not teeth. Not the way you'd expect. They were there, but uneven. Too many in places, too few in others. Some longer, some broken. Like they weren't meant to fit together, but had been forced into place anyway. I couldn't breathe. Not from fear, from something heavier. Like the air around it didn't belong in my lungs. You stayed. It said it again, clearer, stronger. My voice was almost gone from it now. There was something else underneath, something that had always been there. I tried to answer. I don't even know what I was going to say. An apology, a denial, something. But all that came out was a broken exhale. It leaned down, closer, its face inches from mine now. I could feel the heat of its breath. No, not heat, the absence of warmth. Like standing too close to an open freezer, but deeper. Wrong. And then, it did something I still don't understand. It didn't bite. It didn't claw. It didn't attack me the way anything real would. It reached up, slowly. One of its hands, if that's what it was, rose into view. Long fingers, too many joints, bending in places they shouldn't. The tips dark, sharp, but not quite claws. It hesitated, just for a second, like it was considering something. Then it touched my face, lightly, almost careful. The contact sent something through me I can't fully explain. Not pain, not at first. Something colder. like the feeling you get when your hand falls asleep, but deeper, spreading. My vision flickered, not blacking out, shifting. For a moment I wasn't looking up at it anymore. I was looking out, through something else, through its height, through its position, and I saw the cabin, from the tree line, from where it had been standing earlier, watching, waiting, the door, the window, me, inside, moving, unaware. The perspective snapped back so fast it made my head spin. I gasped, or tried to. The air still wouldn't come right. It leaned closer, its face almost touching mine now, and in a voice that wasn't mine anymore. "You knew." The words hit harder than anything before, because something in me reacted. Not confusion, recognition, a memory, small, buried, something I had pushed away. That first moment when I arrived, the feeling, that hesitation at the door, the thought I ignored. This place isn't empty. I had known, not fully, not consciously, but enough that I should have listened. "You knew," it repeated, and this time I believed it. Tears hit the side of my face, cold against the dirt. I didn't even realize I was crying. I didn't, I tried, but the words fell apart, because I had. In some way, I had. And I stayed anyway. Its fingers pressed slightly harder against my skin. Not enough to hurt, enough to anchor. And that feeling spread further, down my neck, across my chest, into my arms. My thoughts slowed, not fading, stretching, like time wasn't moving the same way anymore. The forest around us felt distant, muted, like it didn't matter, like only this moment did. "You stayed," it said again, not accusing, not angry, certain. And then it pulled back, just slightly, enough to look at me fully. And I realized something that hadn't fully formed until then. It wasn't deciding whether to kill me. It had already decided not to. This wasn't an attack. It was something else, something worse. Because as it straightened, as its shape shifted again, adjusting in ways that made my vision stutter, I felt something change inside me. Subtle, but undeniable. Like something had been opened, or taken, or left behind. It stepped back, one step, then another, creating space, not leaving, never leaving, just giving distance. I lay there, unable to move, my body still not responding, my mind struggling to keep up with what had just happened. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought it was over, that it had done whatever it came to do, that it would disappear back into the trees the way it had before. But it didn't. It turned its head slightly, looking past me, toward the direction I had been running, toward where I thought the road would be. Then it looked back at me, and slowly, it stepped aside, like it was letting me go, like it was showing me the way out. But something about it didn't feel like mercy. It felt like instruction, like the next part was mine. And as the feeling in my body started, just barely, to come back, as my fingers twitched against the dirt and my breath finally broke through my chest again, I realized the worst part wasn't what it had done to me. It was what it expected me to do next. Because somewhere deep in my head, under the fear, under the confusion, there was a thought forming that didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. A direction, a pull, back. Not to the road, not away, back to the cabin. I tried to fight it. That's the first thing I need you to understand. Whatever you think about me after this, whatever this makes me sound like, I didn't just get up and walk back like nothing happened. I felt it. That pull. That direction pressing into my thoughts like it had always been there, waiting to be noticed. and I pushed against it. I dug my fingers into the dirt and dragged myself sideways instead of forward. Every inch felt wrong, like moving against a current you can't see but can feel in your bones. My legs still barely responded, heavy and distant, like they belonged to someone else. But I forced them, forced anything that would listen. "Not back," I whispered. My voice sounded thin, strained, not convincing, not even to me. Behind me, it didn't follow. That's what made it worse. It stayed where it was, watching, letting me try. Like this part mattered, like it needed to see what I would choose when I thought I still had one. I pushed myself up onto my knees. The world tilted for a second, then settled just enough to keep me from falling again. My hands shook. My chest hurt. My breath came in uneven pulls that never quite filled my lungs. Forward, anywhere but back. I picked a direction at random and started moving. Slow at first, then faster as my legs began to respond in uneven bursts. Stumbling more than walking, but moving. The forest didn't change. That's what I noticed first. It should have. I had been running before, fast, panicked, covering ground without thinking. But now, even as I pushed forward, the trees felt the same. The spacing, the shapes, the angles of branches cutting through the dark. Too familiar, too repeated. I kept going anyway, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling that pull again. I don't know how long I moved like that. Minutes, maybe longer. Time didn't feel steady anymore. It stretched and compressed in ways that made it impossible to track. But eventually, something broke. Not outside, inside. A shift in my head, like a thread pulling tighter than it should have. And then, a thought. Clear, simple, wrong. You're going the wrong way. I stopped. Not because I wanted to, because my body did. It locked up the same way it had before, only this time I was standing. "No," I said, louder now. "No, I'm not." The forest didn't respond. Of course it didn't, but the feeling did. That pressure in my chest, in my head, that quiet certainty pushing back against me. "You know where to go." I shook my head hard, like that would dislodge it. "That's not me." But it didn't matter, because I did know. That was the part I couldn't escape, even without seeing it, even without turning around. I knew exactly where the cabin was. Not in the way you remember directions, in a different way. Like a sense, like something I could follow without thinking. And the longer I stood there, resisting it, the stronger it got. Not painful, not aggressive, just inevitable. My legs moved before I gave permission. One step, back the way I came. I caught myself, stopped, forced my body to turn again, to push forward. It didn't listen. Another step back. "Stop," I said. Nothing. Another step. Slow, controlled, like before, like it was walking me now. I turned my head just enough to look over my shoulder. It was still there, exactly where I left it, watching, not closer, not farther, just there. And the way it stood, the way its head tilted slightly as I moved. It wasn't following. It didn't need to. I understood then. This part wasn't about distance. It was about direction. And I had already been given one. My body turned fully, facing back toward the cabin. I tried to resist again. I really did. But it was weaker now. That resistance, like something had been taken out of me back there on the ground. Something I needed to say no. And step by step, I started walking. Not running, not stumbling, walking. controlled, steady. The forest seemed to open in front of me now. Not physically, but the path felt clearer, less resistance, like it was guiding me, or like I was finally following something that had always been there. The cabin appeared sooner than it should have, through the trees. Just there, light still on, door open. I don't remember leaving it open, but it was. The doorway looked darker than the forest around it, like stepping into it would be stepping into something deeper than night. I slowed as I approached, my body still moving, but something in me pushing back harder now. Panic clawing its way up through whatever had settled over me. No, I whispered again. My feet didn't stop. The steps creaked as I climbed them, same sound as before, familiar, wrong. The threshold came into view, that thin line between outside and inside. I felt something then, not from the thing behind me, from the cabin. A pressure, subtle, waiting, like it had been empty before, but not anymore. I reached the doorway, and for a moment, just a moment, I hesitated. The same hesitation I felt when I first arrived. That quiet voice. This place isn't empty. But now it meant something different. Now I knew why. My body leaned forward, and I stepped inside. The air hit me immediately, colder than before, heavier, the smell stronger, wrought, damp, something metallic underneath. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The room looked the same, table, chair, my bag where I left it, the can still on the floor, everything in place, unchanged, except it didn't feel like my place anymore, not even a little. The door behind me creaked, slow. I didn't turn, I didn't need to. I knew it had closed, and I knew it wasn't alone anymore. You stayed. The voice came from somewhere inside the cabin, not behind me, not in front, everywhere. Not mine, not its, something in between. I swallowed hard, my throat dry despite the damp air. I'm leaving, I said, but the words felt hollow the second they left me, because my body didn't move, didn't turn, didn't reach for the door. It stayed, rooted, listening, waiting, like it was expecting something, like it knew this wasn't the end. And slowly, very slowly, I became aware of something else. A sound, faint, from the hallway. Footsteps, soft, measured, more than one, coming closer. I didn't move, not because I couldn't, but because something in me understood that moving now would mean acknowledging it fully. And once you do that, there's no stepping back, no pretending it's still just fear, or isolation, or something you can explain later with enough distance. The footsteps in the hallway didn't rush. They never rushed. That same slow, deliberate rhythm. But now there was more than one. Not overlapping, not chaotic. Ordered, spaced, like they were aware of each other, like they were taking turns, waiting. I felt my throat tighten. You said I could go, I whispered. I don't know who I was talking to anymore. The thing outside, the thing inside, or whatever had settled into me. There was no answer. But the steps got closer. One reached the edge of the hallway. I didn't turn. I watched the floor instead. Watched the edge of the light where the hallway met the main room. And then a shadow crossed it, long, distorted, too tall. Then another, slightly different, shorter, but still wrong. My chest tightened harder. That's when I realized something I hadn't let myself think until now. It wasn't alone. It had never been alone. That first one, it wasn't waiting for me. It was bringing me back. For what? I said, but the words didn't finish, because something else interrupted. Not a sound, a feeling. That same pull from before, but stronger now. Not toward the cabin. I was already here. Deeper, toward the hallway. My body responded immediately. A small step forward. No! I stopped it. Barely. My fingers dug into my own arm hard enough to hurt, grounding myself in something real. Something mine. Another step tried to happen. I held it. You said I could go, I repeated, louder now, panic bleeding through. And this time, something answered. Not from the hallway, from behind me. Close. Too close. You can. The voice was calm, clear, not mine, not broken. I turned, slowly. It was standing near the door, the same one from the forest, but different, straighter, more still, like it wasn't hiding what it was anymore. And the way it looked at me, there was no hunger in it, no aggression, just expectation. You can go, it said again, simple, matter of fact, like it meant it, like the choice was real. For a second, just a second, hope slipped in, sharp, painful. I took a step back toward the door. Nothing stopped me, no force, no resistance. Another step, still nothing. My hand reached the handle, cold metal again, solid, real. I wrapped my fingers around it and paused, because behind me, the footsteps stopped, completely. The silence that followed was different this time, not empty, focused, like everything in that hallway was waiting for one thing, for me to decide. I glanced over my shoulder, just a little, just enough to see the edge of the darkness there. Shapes, multiple, standing, not moving, watching. Then I looked back at the door, at the way out. Freedom, distance, escape. And that's when it happened. Not outside, not from them, from me. A thought, quiet, clear, final. If you leave, it stays incomplete. I froze. My grip tightened on the handle. What does that mean? I asked. My voice cracked. The thing behind me didn't answer immediately. It didn't need to, because I felt it. That same awareness from before, the one it had given me, or taken. I didn't know anymore. And suddenly, I understood something I wasn't supposed to. This wasn't about being hunted. It wasn't about being killed. It was about being included, integrated, finished. You stayed, it said softly. And this time, it didn't feel like an accusation. It felt like a reason. My hand trembled on the door. Every instinct I had screamed to open it, to run, to never look back. But that thought, that wrong, steady thought, pressed harder, incomplete. I looked down at my hand, at the way it didn't move, at the way part of me didn't want it to, because leaving meant something would follow. Not physically, something worse, something inside, unfinished. I turned, slowly, fully, away from the door. The moment I did, the air shifted, subtle, but immediate, like something had just aligned. Behind me, the thing near the door didn't move, didn't need to. It already knew. The shapes in the hallway stirred slightly, not stepping forward, not yet, waiting for me. My feet moved. This time, I didn't stop them. One step, then another, toward the hallway. The darkness there didn't feel like absence anymore. It felt like depth, like space that went further than it should. The first shape stepped back as I approached, making room. The others did the same. A path, clear, deliberate. My breathing slowed, not because I was calm, because something in me was settling, accepting, And as I reached the edge of the hallway, as the light from the main room stopped touching the floor ahead, I hesitated. One last time, just for a second, just long enough to feel the weight of it, the choice, the consequence. Then I stepped into the dark, and the moment I did, everything went quiet. Not the same quiet as before, not heavy, not wrong, just complete. I don't know how long I was in there. Time didn't exist the same way. There were shapes, movement, voices that weren't voices, memories that weren't all mine, fragments, pieces, something being arranged, something being understood. And when I came back, I was standing outside. Morning, cold air, soft light breaking through the trees. The cabin behind me, still, silent, empty. The door closed, no movement, no sound, like nothing had ever been there. I stood there for a long time, not thinking, not moving, just there, until eventually my body turned, walked, found the road this time, the real one, and I left. I haven't been back since, but that's not why I'm telling you this. It would be easier if that was the end, if it stayed there, if whatever happened was tied to that place. It's not, because sometimes, not often, but enough, I catch myself stopping without knowing why, turning slightly, listening, and in the silence, I feel it again, that same awareness, that same direction, not pulling me back to the cabin, pulling me towards something else, something I haven't seen yet, something I know, somehow, I'm going to walk toward, eventually, because I understand it now, what it meant, what it did. I wasn't attacked, I wasn't spared, I was changed. And the worst part is, I don't think it's finished with me. I think that was just the first night I stayed. I tried to pretend it would fade, that whatever followed me out of those woods would thin out over time, like a bad memory losing detail. That distance would fix it, that daylight would make it smaller. It didn't. At first it was subtle, small gaps, moments I couldn't account for. I'd be walking somewhere familiar, down a street I've taken 100 times, and suddenly I'd realize I didn't remember the last few steps. Not like I was distracted, not like I was thinking about something else. Just missing. Like I had been there physically, but something else had been paying attention. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, anything that sounded normal. But then came the reflections. It started with glass, windows, screens, anything that could catch a faint image back at me. I'd look up, and for just a second, just a flicker, the posture would be wrong. My shoulders too forward, my head slightly tilted in a way I didn't feel myself doing. Then it would correct, instantly, like it noticed me noticing. I stopped looking after a while, or I tried to. But you can't avoid reflections completely, not in a world like this. They find you in places you don't expect. Darkened screens, passing cars, even the edge of a spoon if you're not careful. And every time, there's that fraction of a second where something doesn't line up. The first time I heard it again, I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. I was home, my actual home, not the cabin, not the woods, somewhere safe, somewhere normal. It was late, quiet, the kind of quiet that should feel comfortable. I was sitting in the dark, not really doing anything, just listening. I've been doing that more since that night, listening to silence like it's going to say something back. And then, a breath behind me, soft, measured, too familiar. I didn't turn. I couldn't, because I already knew what I would or wouldn't see. Instead, I held still, waited, counted my own breathing. 1, 2, 3. It matched perfectly. Then just slightly, it didn't. That second rhythm, slower, deeper, right behind me. I closed my eyes, tight, like that would help, like that would block it out. "You're not here," I whispered. The words felt weak the second I said them, because something in me already disagreed. The breath stopped, just like before, not fading, stopping. And the silence that followed, it felt attentive, like it was listening to me the way I was listening to it. I stayed like that for a long time, eyes closed, not moving, until eventually I forced myself to turn, slowly, carefully. Nothing, empty room, no movement, no sound. But the air felt wrong, that same uneven cold, faint, but there. I stood up too fast, knocking into the chair behind me. The noise grounded me for a second. Something real, something that behaved the way it should. I turned on the light. Everything looked normal, exactly the same. And that's when I realized, that's what it wants. Not chaos, not destruction, consistency, familiarity, a place it can fit into. I started noticing other things after that. Patterns, repetition, words I'd say without thinking, and then hear later, slightly off, like an echo that came too late or too early. I stayed. That one comes back the most. Sometimes I hear it when I'm alone, sometimes when I'm not. Same tone, same weight. But it doesn't feel like memory anymore. It feels like reinforcement, like something being reminded, or something reminding me. The worst part isn't the fear. That's what I expected. The worst part is how normal it's starting to feel, how easy it is to ignore, to move past, to keep going like nothing's wrong. Because that's when it's strongest, not when I'm panicking, not when I'm aware, when I forget, when I slip back into routine. That's when I catch myself doing things I don't remember deciding to do, standing in places I didn't mean to go, looking at things a second too long, listening for something I can't hear yet. There was one moment, I haven't told anyone this. I ended up outside my apartment building in the middle of the night. No memory of getting there, no shoes, just standing on the pavement, staring down the street. And for a second, I knew where I was supposed to go. Not the cabin, somewhere else, somewhere I've never been. But it felt the same. That same pull, that same certainty. I stopped myself that time, barely. Forced myself back inside, locked the door, sat with my back against it until morning. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a delay. Because every time it happens, every time I feel that direction, it gets a little clearer, a little stronger, and I understand a little more. That night in the cabin, that wasn't the end. It wasn't even the main part. It was the beginning of something being shared, extended. And I think, no, I know there are more places like that. More openings, more points where whatever that thing is, or whatever it's part of, reaches through. And now, I'm connected to them. Not physically, something else. Something I don't have words for. But I feel it. Every time the silence gets too quiet. Every time the world slows just a little too much. Every time I catch my reflection just a second too late. I feel it. Waiting. Not chasing, not forcing, just waiting for me to finish what I started. Because I did start it. That's the part I can't escape. I stayed. And now, part of me is still there. And part of it is still here. And I don't think either of us is done yet. I think next time I won't stop myself. I think next time I'll follow it all the way. I didn't plan to go. That's what I keep telling myself, even now. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't a moment where I stood up and said, "This is it. I'm going back into whatever that was." If it had been that clear, if it had felt like a choice, I think I would have fought harder. It happened the way everything else started happening, quietly. Between moments, I was in my apartment again, same chair, same dim light. I had started leaving the lights on more often, like it made a difference, like it kept something out. It didn't, but it made me feel like I was still in control of something. I remember blinking. That's it, just a normal blink. And then I was somewhere else, standing. Cold air, no walls, no ceiling, just trees. Not the same forest, I knew that immediately. This one felt younger, thinner, the trees spaced wider apart, the ground less cluttered, the air sharper. But underneath that, it was the same in the ways that mattered. The silence, the weight of it, the way it wasn't empty. My chest tightened, but not from panic. Recognition. "You found it," I said before I could stop myself. The words slipped out like they'd been waiting, like they weren't new. No answer came, not out loud, but the feeling shifted, that subtle alignment I'd started to recognize. Like something had been confirmed. I turned slowly, taking in the space. There was no cabin here, no structure, just forest. And ahead, a break in the trees. Not a path, not clearly, but intentional. The kind of space that feels made, even when nothing about it looks touched. I didn't want to move. That part of me still existed, still resisted, but it was quieter now, distant, like trying to hear someone calling from another room. My feet stepped forward, on their own. The ground was softer here, damp, cold seeping through the thin layer of my shoes. I hadn't even noticed I was still barefoot until then. The detail didn't matter. Nothing outside the direction mattered. Step by step, I moved toward that opening. The silence thickened as I got closer. Not oppressive, focused, like everything in the space was narrowing to a point. And when I reached it, I stopped. Because in the center, there was something. Not a structure, not fully, but arranged. Branches, logs, stone, stacked, positioned. Not randomly, not naturally. A shape, rough, incomplete, waiting. I felt my breath catch. Not in fear, in understanding. This is what it meant. Incomplete. The word surfaced again, clearer than ever. I stepped closer. The air around it was colder than the rest of the forest. That same uneven cold, concentrated here like it had been in the cabin, like it had been around it. My hands moved before I could think, reaching, touching. The wood was damp, rough, real, and wrong, because I knew, without knowing how, I hadn't built this, but I was supposed to. "You stayed." The voice came from everywhere again. Not behind me, not in front. Through the space itself. I swallowed. "I didn't come here," I said. It wasn't a lie, but it didn't matter. "You stayed," it repeated, not correcting me, reframing it. And that's when something clicked into place. Not suddenly, not violently, just fitting. Staying wasn't about the cabin. It wasn't about that one night. It was about this, about continuing, about finishing. My hands tightened on the wood, and before I could stop myself, I moved it. Just slightly. Adjusted it. The second I did. The air changed. A shift, small, but undeniable. Like something had responded. Like something had taken notice. My heart started to pound again, harder, faster, but underneath that, something else. Relief. I staggered back. "What did I just do?" I whispered. No answer. But the shape in front of me, it felt different now. Less empty, less waiting. I shook my head hard, stepping away from it. No, I'm not doing this. I turned, started walking back the way I came. Faster now, forcing it, breaking that alignment, breaking that pull. The forest resisted, not physically, but it felt harder to move. Like the direction I was taking didn't fit anymore. "Stop," I said louder now. "I'm not finishing anything." The silence didn't argue. It didn't need to, because the moment I stepped far enough away, I felt it again. That split, that tension, like something inside me was stretching too far in two directions. I stumbled, dropped to one knee. Pain shot through my chest, not sharp, but deep, pressing outward like something didn't have enough room. "You stayed," the voice said again, closer this time, inside, not around me. I pressed a hand to my chest. "I'm leaving," I forced out. And this time, for the first time, there was resistance. Not from my body, from the space itself. The air thickened. The silence pressed in, not stopping me, but making it harder. Like walking through something unseen. I pushed through it, one step, then another, each one heavier than the last, until finally something broke. Not in the forest, in me. A snap, a release. The pressure vanished. I stumbled forward, and I was back. Apartment, floor, cold tile under my hands. My breath tearing back into my lungs like I'd been underwater. The lights still on, the room exactly the same. I looked down at my hands. Dirt, real, under my nails, on my skin. I sat there for a long time, long enough for the shaking to settle into something quieter, something worse. Because I knew. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't just gone there. I had changed something. Even if it was small, even if it was just a single piece moved into place, I had made it less incomplete. And now, it knows I can. That's the part that doesn't leave, that understanding, that connection. Because ever since that night, the pull hasn't just gotten stronger, it's gotten more precise, more locations, more directions. Not all at once, never overwhelming, just enough, just one at a time. Like it's showing me, teaching me, guiding me. And I don't think it's trying to trick me anymore. I think it's waiting for me to accept it, to stop fighting, to finish what I started. Because the truth is, it felt different when I touched it, when I moved that piece. For a second, I felt like I belonged there. Like that space made sense in a way nothing else does anymore. And that's what scares me the most. Not the thing in the woods, not the voice, not even what it did to me. It's that feeling, that quiet, dangerous certainty, that next time, I won't try to leave. I'll stay, and I'll finish it. I didn't tell anyone, not after that. There's a point where trying to explain something like this stops being about getting help and starts becoming about proving you're still normal. And I knew how it would sound. I knew the words wouldn't carry what I'd felt. They'd flatten it, turn it into something small, something manageable. This isn't manageable. So I kept it to myself. I went through the motions, ate, slept when I could, spoke when spoken to. Let people believe I was just tired, just distracted, just dealing with something I'd eventually get over. And for a while, I almost believed it too, because the pull didn't come every day. Sometimes it skipped a night, sometimes two, just enough space to make me think it was fading, just enough silence to make me lower my guard. But it always came back, and each time, it was clearer. The next place didn't take as long. There was no moment of transition I could point to. No blink, no lapse I could catch. 1 second I was standing in my kitchen, staring at nothing, and the next, cold air, stone under my feet. Not forest this time, open space, wider, heavier. The sky above was gray, not clouded, just muted, like the color had been drained out of it. The air smelled different too, less organic, less alive. And in front of me, another shape, bigger than the last, more defined, still incomplete. I didn't hesitate this time. That's the truth I can't soften. I didn't stand there questioning it. I didn't try to leave. I didn't even look for a way out. I walked forward, slow, controlled, like I had done this before, because I had. You stayed. The voice again, everywhere. But now, it sounded closer to me than it ever had. Not mimicking, not repeating, aligned. I know, I said, and I meant it. My hands moved before I could think about stopping them, touching the structure, adjusting it, fitting pieces together that didn't look like they should fit, but did. Every movement made something shift in the air, subtle at first, then stronger, like pressure equalizing, like something opening in increments. I felt it in my chest again, that tension. But this time, it didn't hurt. It settled, like something that had been out of place was sliding into alignment. You stayed, the voice said again, softer, almost approving. I stepped back, looked at what I had done. It still wasn't finished, not even close, but it was further along than before, more stable, more real. And I understood something then that I hadn't let myself fully accept. This wasn't one place. It wasn't one structure. It wasn't one event. It was a process, and I was part of it. Not a victim, not just a witness, a participant. That realization should have broken me. Maybe it did, in a way. But what I felt wasn't panic. It was clarity. A terrible, quiet clarity. I turned. This time, I didn't try to find a way out. I didn't need to. I knew it would come when it was supposed to. And it did, just like before. The shift, the release, the return. Back in my apartment, same position, same room, but different. Because I was different. I looked at my hands again. Cleaner this time. No dirt, no visible proof. But I didn't need it anymore. I could still feel it. That connection. Stronger now, more defined. Like a thread pulled tighter between me and something I couldn't fully see yet. I sat down. Not because I was tired. Because I needed to process something I already understood. This wasn't going to stop. Not on its own. And not because I resisted. It would only stop when it was done. When everything was complete. And I knew there were more places, more structures, more pieces waiting. The next time I felt it, I didn't resist at all. I didn't pretend. I didn't argue. I let it happen. The transition came easier, smoother, less disorienting, and the place different again. Water this time. Still, dark, reflective in a way that made it hard to tell where the surface ended and depth began. And in the center, another shape. Lower, wider, half submerged, waiting. I stepped toward it, no hesitation, no fear. Just that same steady understanding guiding me forward. You stayed. I smiled. I didn't mean to. It just happened. I'm finishing it, I said. The words felt right, too right. And as I stepped into the water, cold wrapping around my legs, then my waist, then higher, I realized something I hadn't before. Each place wasn't just different in form. It was different in what it took from me. The forest took my awareness. The cabin took my voice. This place, it was taking something else. I could feel it already. Subtle, slipping, like a memory just out of reach. I reached the structure, hands moving again, fitting pieces, completing patterns I didn't understand, but somehow knew exactly how to follow. And as I worked, something in me faded. Not all at once, piece by piece, until finally, there was a gap, a missing part, and I didn't remember what it had been. I didn't even know it was gone. Not until later. Back in my apartment, dry, safe, normal. I tried to think of something simple. A memory, a face, a name. And for a moment, there was nothing. Just a blank space where something used to be. That's when it hit me. Not fear, not panic. Understanding. This isn't just about building something out there. It's about building it out of me, piece by piece, place by place, until there's nothing left that isn't part of it. And the worst part, the part I can't escape now, is that I don't want to stop anymore. Not really. Because every time I go back, every time I help finish another piece, that feeling comes back. That quiet certainty, that sense of belonging. Like I'm becoming something that finally makes sense. And I know where this is going, even if I can't see the final shape yet. I know what happens when it's done, because I've felt it in fragments, in glimpses, in those moments where the silence isn't empty or heavy or wrong, just complete. And I'm getting closer. I can feel that, too. There aren't many places left now, not many pieces, not many parts of me. And when the last one is finished, when the last piece fits, I don't think I'll come back at all. I think that's when I finally stay. I know how this ends, not because I've seen it, because there's nothing else it can be. You don't get pulled this far into something without it leading somewhere final. Every piece, every place, every part of me that's been taken or adjusted, it's all moving toward one point. One moment where it stops being a process and becomes a state. Permanent. That's the word that sits with me now. Permanent. The last place didn't come suddenly. It built. Not outside, inside. For days I could feel it forming before I ever went there. That pull wasn't directional anymore. It didn't point somewhere else. It pointed inward. Like the place was already partially here, waiting for me to recognize it, waiting for me to finish bringing it through. I stopped sleeping. There was no point. Every time I closed my eyes, I wasn't resting. I was closer. I could feel the shapes, the structure, the incomplete edges of something massive, something that didn't fit into any space I understood. And then, one night, I didn't come back. Not right away. I was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, lights on, same as always, trying to hold on to something that felt like me. And then, the silence shifted, not around me, through me, like something had just aligned. And when I opened my eyes, I was there. No transition, no disorientation, just arrival. The last place wasn't like the others. It wasn't forest. It wasn't open space. It wasn't water. It was all of it, and none of it. The ground existed, but didn't feel solid. The sky existed, but didn't hold anything. The space stretched in ways that didn't follow distance. And at the center, the structure, complete, or almost, larger than anything before. Not made of wood or stone or anything I could name. Made of pieces, not just physical. Fragments, forms, echoes of places I'd been. Parts of the cabin, parts of the forest, parts of things I didn't even remember clearly anymore, and parts of me. I knew that immediately, without needing to be told. You stayed. The voice wasn't everywhere anymore. It didn't need to be. It came from within the structure itself, from all of it at once, and from me. I know, I said, calm, no hesitation, no fear, because there wasn't anything left in me that could resist it. I stepped forward. The ground shifted under my feet, not moving, but adjusting, like it was responding to me being there, welcoming me. I reached the structure, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I didn't question. I didn't try to understand. My hands moved, but not like before. I wasn't adjusting pieces anymore. I was placing something that wasn't in my hands, something that was me. It's hard to explain that part. There's no physical sensation that matches it. No pain, no tearing, no loss you can point to. Just a shift, a transfer, like stepping from one room into another and realizing the door closed behind you without you noticing. You stayed. Closer now, clearer, final. I'm here, I said, and that was the truth. Not just physically, completely. Everything that had been pulled, shaped, guided, it all aligned in that moment. The structure responded, not moving, not changing, completing. There was a sound, not heard, felt, like something locking into place. And for a second, just a second, I saw it, the whole of it. Not the structure itself, what it was, what it meant. Not a place, not a thing, a network, a pattern. Something that spans across spaces the way a shadow spans across light. And I wasn't just part of it. I was one of the points, one of the anchors, one of the things that lets it exist here. That's what we were, all of us, because I wasn't alone there. I felt them, not bodies, not shapes, presences, connected, aligned, each one tied to a place, each one having stayed. And then it was done, not gradually, not slowly. Done. Complete. The pull stopped. The pressure vanished. The silence. It wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't watching. It wasn't waiting. It just was. And for the first time since that night, I felt still. Not scared. Not confused. Not resisting. Still. Whole. I don't know how long I existed like that, because time didn't apply there. But eventually, something shifted again, not pulling, not guiding, releasing. And I understood. I could go back, not because I needed to, because I was allowed to, because it didn't matter anymore. I was already part of it, already placed, already stayed. When I opened my eyes, I was back. Apartment, same room, same position, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I stood up slowly. My body felt normal. My thoughts were clear, too clear. No noise, no conflict, just quiet understanding. I walked to the mirror. I hadn't looked in one in a long time. Not properly, not directly. I stood there, and for a moment, it was just me, normal, unchanged. Then, my head tilted slightly, without me deciding to do it. And the reflection, it didn't correct, it held. That wrong angle, that familiar, unnatural stillness. And then, it smiled, not wide, not exaggerated, just enough, controlled, deliberate. I didn't react. I didn't step back, because I understood now. It wasn't separate. It wasn't something looking back at me. It was me, or at least part of what I am now. I blinked, and it was normal again. Same face, same posture, same everything, but I knew. That's when I finally understood the last part, the part I couldn't see before. It was never about taking me somewhere else permanently. It was about making this place part of it too, extending it, anchoring it, through me, through others. And now, it doesn't need to pull me anymore. It doesn't need to guide me, because I know, because I'll do it on my own, when it needs me to, where it needs me to. There are others. I feel them now, faint, distant, just starting, hesitating at doors, standing at windows, feeling that first quiet wrongness in places that aren't empty. And I know what they're going to do, what they always do. They'll stay, just like I did. And when they do, I'll feel it. Another point, another place, another piece. And maybe, if you're listening to this, if any of this feels familiar, if you've ever stood somewhere and felt like the silence was watching you back, then you should understand something. You still have a choice. I did too. At the beginning, before I stayed, before I stepped inside, before I answered. That's when it matters. That's when you can still leave. Because once it starts, once you feel that pull and don't walk away, it doesn't stop. Not until it's finished. Not until you're part of it. Like me. Like all of us. So if you ever feel it, that quiet, that weight, that sense that something is waiting just beyond what you can see, don't stay. Because I did, and now, I'm still here. But I'm not the only one anymore. And next time, it might not be me watching. It might be you. I didn't think there would be anything after that. Not really. When something ends that completely, when every part of it settles into place and the noise finally stops, you expect silence to mean over, finished, closed. For a while, it felt that way. Days passed without interruption, no gaps, no misplaced moments, no reflections that lingered too long or moved when I didn't. I slept. I ate. I existed in a way that felt almost familiar again. Almost. That was the word I kept circling. Because even in that quiet, there was something underneath it. Not active, not pushing. Just present. Like a structure you can't see but know you're standing inside. I told myself it was done. That whatever had been built, whatever I had become part of, didn't need anything else from me. That I was just left with it. And then, it happened again. But not to me. That's the difference. I was walking home, early evening, people around, normal noise, cars, voices, movement, everything layered in a way that used to drown things out. But now, I hear differently. I don't just hear sound, I hear absence. Pockets where things don't quite reach, spaces between noise. And that's where I felt it. A disturbance, small, faint, but unmistakable. I stopped without thinking, turned my head, not toward a sound, toward a gap. There was a man standing near a bus stop. Nothing unusual about him at first glance, just someone waiting, looking down, hands in his pockets. But the space around him, it felt wrong, thin, like something was pressing in from the edges, and he felt it. I could see it in the way his shoulders were just slightly too tense, the way his head turned a fraction too slow when a car passed, like his attention wasn't fully here. Recognition hit immediately, sharp, clear. He was at the beginning, that first moment, that hesitation, that quiet awareness that something wasn't right. I felt it then. Not the pull, not the direction, something else. Connection, a thread, faint but there, linking him to something I was already part of, linking him to me. I stepped closer before I realized what I was doing. Not close enough to be noticed, just enough. And as I did, the air shifted, subtle but real. His head lifted slightly, not toward me, toward the space beside him, toward something he couldn't see yet, but would, soon. My chest tightened, not from fear, from understanding. This is how it continues, not by reaching out randomly, by finding the ones who notice, the ones who hesitate, the ones who stay just a second too long. "You should go," I said. The words came out before I could stop them, soft, barely above a whisper. He didn't react at first. Then, slowly, he turned, not fully, just enough that I could see his face. Confusion, uncertainty, that first flicker of awareness. "What?" he asked. I hesitated, and in that hesitation, I felt it, that familiar alignment, that quiet pressure. Not forcing, not controlling, just waiting to see what I would do. I could tell him, I could warn him, tell him to leave, to ignore it, to walk away before it gets worse, before it starts. That was still an option, for him, for me in that moment. A choice, the same kind I had at the beginning. And for a second, I almost took it. I almost told him everything, every detail, every consequence, every step that leads to that final place. But then, something else surfaced. Not a voice, not a command, a feeling, clear, certain, familiar, incomplete. I looked at him, really looked this time, at the way he was already leaning toward that space without realizing it, at the way his attention kept slipping just slightly away from everything else, at the way the silence around him wasn't empty anymore. And I knew, even if I told him, even if I explained everything, it wouldn't stop it, because it didn't stop me. I had known, in my own way, and I stayed anyway. "You should go," I repeated, but it sounded different this time, less urgent, less real. He frowned slightly. "Go where?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore. Or maybe I did, and I wasn't saying it. He waited a second longer, then shook his head, like dismissing it, like choosing not to engage, and turned away, back to waiting, back to that space, that thin, wrong silence. I stood there for a moment, long enough to feel it shift again, that connection tightening, just slightly, the first thread forming. Then I stepped back, turned, walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel it, the moment it would happen. Not exactly when, not exactly how, but I knew it would, because it always does. And as I walked, I felt something settle inside me. Not relief, not guilt. Something quieter, acceptance, because this isn't something that can be stopped. Not by warning, not by understanding, not by fear. It continues, it grows, it connects. And now, I'm part of how it finds the next place, the next person, the next piece. I told you at the beginning that it followed me back. That wasn't wrong, but it wasn't complete. It didn't just follow me. It expanded through me. And now, when I feel that silence shift, when I notice that hesitation in someone else, when I see that first moment where they realize something isn't right, I understand my place in it. I'm not being watched anymore. I'm one of the ones watching. And next time, I don't think I'll tell them to go. I think I'll just wait, like it waited for me.